Are you going to do the intro?
Oh, I totally forgot. I guess we're going to edit that out.
Or we can keep it in.
Yeah. Let's see.
We're just both staring.
Yeah. I was like waiting on you and you were waiting on me.
Welcome to the Bookish Introverts podcast. Join host Amazon bestselling author Brett Nelson and avid reader Melanie Dyer as they dive in to review books they've read, then chat with the amazing authors behind them. Quiet minds, big bookshelves. You don't want to miss it.
Hey everyone, it's Brett and Melanie, and we are back for another book discussion. And this week, we decided on something a little bit different.
A little bit different.
And I'm really anxious to see what you thought about it. Yeah. Today we are talking about Transgression, City of God by is it R.L.? R.L.? R.M.?
I think it's R.S.
R.S. Ingermanson. I have never heard of him before, so he's a totally new author to me.
It's an interesting last name.
It is, yeah. When I read Ingermanson, my mind goes to Charles Manson. So I don't know.
That's unfortunate.
I don't know what that says about me as a human being, but
I guess I didn't pay enough attention, but that's probably where my mind would have gone as well.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
That is unfortunate. That's an unfortunate.
Yes, that's an unfortunate for that
relation there. I mean, not that he's related, just two words being.
I just realized I don't have my headphones on either, so
that's not good.
I know. Okay, so you want to tell us a little bit about him?
Sure. Okay, so this book was published in 2014, first of all. He is a physicist, which explains quite a lot about the content of the book.
Yeah, which kind of drew me to the book because, first of all, I've never read. Have you ever read a time machine book or time travel book?
No.
See, I haven't either, and it really doesn't seem like the kind of book that I would be interested in. But the fact that that's his background, I was like, okay, he might have a more solid approach.
I would think so.
That really, I thought, okay, I think this is a book I want to try.
Yeah. Obviously a novel writer. And he is a computer geek. So went to graduate school at University of California, Berkeley, where he was awarded an MA and PhD in physics, specializing in elementary particle theory. He did...
I have no idea what that is.
I have little bits and pieces of knowledge, but, don't ask me a question.
Yeah.
His postdoctoral work... Clearly the man's smarter than me because I can't say postdoctoral.
It's one of those days.
2-year stint at Ohio State University in Columbus, and he worked on superstring theory there.
Heard of it, but again, have no idea what it is.
During that time, he decided he could write a novel, but he didn't start writing until the end of his postdoctorate training. He wrote a string of novels, and he didn't publish any of them.
And I can identify with that because I had 4 books written before I ever published my first one. So.
I've had ideas for books, but they've never been published.
And girl, we're going to be talking about that one of these days.
His books were picked up by a publisher, but the publisher didn't market them properly. He made very little money, and that was in the 90s. He launched a website in 2005 called advancedfictionwriting.com. And I'm surprised I've never heard of that, but I have some writer friends that may have. I have a group of friends that
we all check it out. See if it's something that would be useful.
Yeah, we all met on a writing website, so that was like our main conversation for years, and then we just all sort of became friends in general. So now we talk about all sorts of things. He wrote an article that made him famous among fiction authors titled "Snowflake Method." I've never heard of that either, but I'm not a fiction author. I'm a fan fiction author, so sorry.
Okay, what's the difference between fiction and fan fiction? I've heard of fan fiction, but I don't really know.
Fan fiction is where you take a book, a TV show, a movie, even a video game, and you take those characters, like, say you're not happy with the ending of Game of Thrones. Not a long shot. You're like, well, I could have made a better ending than that, so you just write a story using the characters.
Oh, okay. Oh, and that's legal?
Well, you don't make any money off it.
Oh, okay.
Unless you're...
because that's kind of stealing someone else's intellectual property.
It's protected by copyright. Because it's... now there are some authors that do not give permission
Oh, did they have to
like
get permission?
Anne Rice? It was a huge thing. Anne Rice did not get permission to use her the vampire books, Interview with the Vampire.
Oh, Interview with the Vampire.
I think she wrote Interview.
Was that
anyway,
fan fiction?
No. That's her book.
Okay.
I think that's her book.
Okay.
She wrote vampire books. I don't know. I don't read vampire books.
I don't either.
But yeah, she was like, no. But there's a lot of it, especially books that are, what's it called? Public domain.
Yeah.
So you can pretty much do.
Yeah,
anything
which
you
kind of
want
happens
with it.
like, I think, 50 years after the
Yeah.
author's dead or something.
Yeah. Now, if you wanted to publish something, and there are some fan fiction authors that have been published, some Jane Austen stuff that have been published, and I think sometimes you have to get permission to do that, and some people have gotten permission.
From the publishing company or whoever,
from
the
whoever
author.
owns the rights. So yeah. But you can't make any money off it. It's just all out on the internet.
So it's just something you do for fun.
It's just free. It's been around for years and years. I think Star Trek was probably the first since the 60s. I would think. I don't know the birth of it, but I know Star Trek was a huge fan fiction thing.
Yeah, I've heard of it. That's cool to know.
The snowflake method is a method for writing novels, which led him to publishing several how-to books. This man is very smart.
He is.
He dumped traditional publishing also in 2005 and entered into indie publishing. Got the book rights from the publishing company that owned his previous books, and made more money off them. So
imagine that.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Well done. He is working on a new 4-book series of novels on the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus.
That one sounds like that might be cool.
It does. I don't know how much The Chosen might have thrown a wrench in those plans of his, but
Possibly,
you know, there's room for. I don't want to say there's room for interpretation. I don't mean there's room for other people to.
But when something
The Chosen is kind of fan fiction. There you go.
Oh, is it?
The Chosen is kind of fan fiction because you're filling in the gaps between what the Bible says. You know, this happened, this happened, this happened.
Okay,
but in the meantime, you've got character development with the apostles. You see how they live. You see their relationships.
Yeah. So you're sort of adding soft content into the concrete stuff that we know happens.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
It is a kind of fan fiction.
Yeah, and
please don't come for me on that. I'm begging you.
Yeah, and I enjoy that when authors do. And we kind of talked about this some with Angela Hunt a little bit, but there are a lot of Christian fiction readers don't like that. They think the Bible talks about do not add to or take away, but you're not adding to the Bible. This is not adding to the Bible. Yeah, you're filling in the details of how it could have been in a fiction book.
They are very careful to start at the beginning saying, if you want the story, read the Bible. This is an interpretation.
Yes.
And
I just think it's kind of fun to see how it could have been.
As far as I know, no one was making a huge fuss when they made Jesus of Nazareth, and not everything in Jesus of Nazareth was smack dab in the Bible. I mean,
yeah,
come on.
Well, and again, we live in a day when people are so sensitive and so offended by everything, and unfortunately, Christians aren't immune from it. So
and no one messes with the 10 Commandments. That's like tradition. Charlton Heston parting the Red Sea. No one complains about it, but I don't think the Bible has a quote that says, "Oh, Moses, you stubborn, splendid, adorable fool."
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Just read it and have fun with it.
Yeah.
Or watch it and have fun with it. Yeah. Just take it for the entertainment that it is.
Absolutely. We have rabbit chased all over this bio.
I apologize,
R.S. Sir, Mr. R.S. Ingermanson, Dr. R.S. Ingermanson. Yes. Sorry, we work at a college. We understand.
Yes.
So this book won a Christie Award in futuristic fiction.
Yes, and that's a big award.
It is a big award.
The Christie and the Carroll Awards are the two big awards.
I still like to think that the Christie Award has something to do with the book Christie. I know it doesn't, but
in your mind,
that's my fan fiction.
We'll let it be the way you want it.
It's in tribute to the book Christie.
Yeah.
So that's the bio, and if Dr. R.S. Ingermanson is listening to this, I apologize for the rabbit trails we left all through your bio. You seem to be a very, very intelligent man.
Yeah, and I will say, I went to his website and to sort of see to learn a little bit about him since I had never heard from him. And I don't know if you went in and read his bio on his website or
I
not,
didn't.
but he's kind of a funny guy.
I had the feeling because there were a few times.
Yeah, he had some funny little
one moment in particular that I was like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that later. But
yeah, I want to hear what you thought about was funny. Yeah, when we get there.
He has a sense of humor for sure.
He definitely has a sense of humor.
I like when there's some humor injected in things. It works for me. Makes me happy. Anyway, that's the bio. Shall we get into?
So, what did you think? Like, just okay. Now, you kind of like fantasy, right?
I like fantasy and sci-fi. The problem is, I tend to like it more to watch, not to read.
Okay.
I've tried a few sci-fi books. Only one of them I have truly loved, and I'm not sure you could. I think now it would be classified as something else. At the time, it was sci-fi, but after all these dystopian future novels, I think it would be classified as something else. But Fahrenheit 451 was like a huge thing for me. I really, really loved it, and it was it's the
was
only
that the Michael Moore.
No.
Oh, okay. Not the same thing.
Fahrenheit 451 was written by Ray Bradbury.
Oh, okay.
And it's about a future where no knowledge is allowed, no outside knowledge.
Oh,
wow!
Is that like a classic book? Ray Bradbury's classic. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, very classic. Oddly enough, I think it's been on a few ban lists. Just like irony.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they burn books and and it's told from the point of view. It's been years since I read it.
I'm gonna have to read that.
I think I was in high school the last time I read it, but it's told from the point of view of he's a firefighter. He's a firefighter, but their job is not to fight fires. His job is to burn books.
Oh.
Burn knowledge, the government controls everything.
So the government tells him what books need to be burned, and he follows their orders. Okay.
Yes. So that's the only sci-fi novel I've ever read. And again, like I said, since the Hunger Games and stuff like that, it kind of fit into its own
and I
genre
like the Hunger
now.
Games, but
I do like the Hunger Games.
I never read the books though.
I do like the Hunger Games, but again, I don't know that I'd classify it as science fiction. I think it's just sort of made a little genre all its own.
I consider that kind of dystopian, more than sci-fi. But I guess sci-fi. I guess it could be a branch on the sci-fi tree, but
yes, it could be. It could be. Say that way too much. It's funny because this book deals with wormholes.
Yes.
I don't know anything about. I know squat about wormholes. Everything I learned from wormholes, I learned from Stargate SG-1.
Mm-hmm.
Huge fan of Stargate SG-1.
And Interstellar. I watched Interstellar last week, and they talked about wormholes.
There is wormholes.
Yeah, and I thought, that kind of deals with the book we're reading. Yeah. So basically, a wormhole, for those that don't know, is a way to get somewhere light years in the future or in the past.
Well,
and it's a short way to get there.
You can, and this is where the interesting thing comes in. So, again, like I said, all I know about wormholes, I learned from Stargate SG-1, and in that you travel from place to place. It's not a time machine. Time travel, as far as they say, is impossible. Although they do a little bit of it.
Yes.
In a fantastic episode, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
So I think in this book, it is legitimately used to travel from one point in history to another point, or from one point in time to another point in time.
Yeah.
I don't know the true thought behind wormholes, but I also think they say you can go just from place to place. In SG-1, it's used to travel from one place in the galaxy to another place in the galaxy.
Yeah.
So just location to location.
Yeah.
So I think it can be used for either thing. But again, not a theoretical physicist, but I watch Big Bang Theory.
And I don't.
It's kind of like Holiday Inn.
Some of this, and he did sort of get into. Wasn't deep in it, like it wouldn't, but. Even the little bit that he topped, I was like,
I didn't
don't
understand
really.
it.
Yeah, I didn't understand it.
Science is not my.
Yeah.
Science and math were not my subjects.
So don't feel daunted by the book, because he does give you a little bit of the science behind it, but it's and you're not going to understand it unless you're a physicist, but it still is interesting to hear the science talk.
It is interesting. Yeah. It is interesting, but I didn't understand it. I understood some of the words.
Yeah, I've heard some of the words, but that's about it.
But that's all there is to it. I was what's his name? Baruch.
Baruch.
Yes, I was Brother Baruch.
Well, that's how I pronounced it. Yeah.
I started to say Baruch, but in Hebrew, I don't think that would be.
That may not be
They would make the hard sound, wouldn't they?
Baruch.
Yeah. Sounds more.
I don't know. You're more into the historical stuff.
Seems to be more in line with that.
So you
way
think
that
it should be
maybe
be
than Baruch. I feel like I don't think it's Baruch.
You think
Baruch.
Well, Baruch is how I pronounced it in my mind.
We'll go with Baruch.
So since we have a consensus, that's what we'll go with. And I really liked another thing that I liked about what made me want to read this book was I just think it's a very interesting perspective, a very interesting, like going back in time. What the premise of the book is, there's a lot of Jesus hate in this book with some of the characters. It's the unbelieving characters in the book. It's not a Jesus hate book.
No.
But they go back in time. The two main characters, Rivka and Ari, go back in time to help stop an assassination attempt on the Apostle Paul.
Yes, Paul of Tarsus.
Yes.
Or Renegade Saul.
Yes.
As he is now.
Yes, Renegade. He Renegade Saul.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, so basically, the book starts out with these Ari and Dove. Well, it actually starts out with Rivka and Dove in the field. They're archaeologists.
Yes.
They're graduate students.
Just outside of Jerusalem, I believe.
Yes, just outside of Jerusalem. On
a dig.
And they find some artifacts. And you really don't hear anything about the artifacts except at the very beginning and then again at the very end.
Yes.
But so they're out there in this dig, and Dove,
I think it's Dove,
wants to set her up, but wants her to meet his cousin, Ari. Is it cousin?
Well,
nephew?
Ari is his cousin. She is not on board with setting up, but
no, she's not.
He says, well, can you recommend someone that's, here with us that might be interested?
Okay, yeah.
So she's kind of with Dove,
you
are
so good at remembering the early details of a book. I'm just trying to figure out what in the heck's going on, and so sometimes these little details I lose them by the time I get to the end.
Yeah, they go on this double date.
Yes,
and she's with Dove actually, but she's not with
Dove and Jessica. And Jessica is Rivka's best friend, right?
Well, she's a friend.
Okay.
So they're coupled up, and it's kind of Ari and Jessica and Dove and Rivka.
Mm-hmm.
There is just friends, and I mean they all just kind of act like friends, but they bring Jessica along technically for Ari.
Yes.
And Jessica is they just kind of switch, although I don't think Dove and Jessica ever really get.
And unless their relationship evolves in it, because this is a
series, so it could evolve. I don't know. Yeah. But Jessica is just a polar opposite of Rivka. She's tall and blonde, and Rivka refers to her as a Jewish princess.
Yes.
And Rivka is short, 5'2", she says eventually in the book. Dark hair, olive skin, dark eyes. So she looks more like the people she's being surrounded by at the moment.
Yes. In Jerusalem.
Than Jessica does.
Yes.
But yeah, Jessica's real tall and blonde and,
blonde
beautiful.
Bombshell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they go out on the town and sort of out on the town.
Yeah.
As archaeologists and a physicist professor, a physics professor would, they go out to eat and then hit museums
I saw myself. I kind of saw myself in Ari when because the second time they kind of met, and then the second time, or maybe it was the first time, there was a bookstore.
A bookstore, and he
street.
almost went into it.
Yeah, and I was like, okay,
yeah,
that's me. I'm the type of person like, okay, forget the food. There's a bookstore.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's cool that they were doing all the things they were doing. They weren't like, going out nightclub. I mean, there was some dancing and stuff like that, but they weren't out nightclubbing and things like that. They were hitting stuff like museums and what was the one? I can't remember any of the place names now, which makes me sad.
This is why you need to take notes like I do.
I'm thinking of all the places in Jerusalem, but there was one in particular I had never heard of.
And Ari,
which I'm not a scholar of Jerusalem.
Yeah, Ari is a professor at Hebrew University. So
yes, he's a physics professor.
Just for those of you who are familiar with the area.
Yes. And he winds up taking Rivka out to plant trees.
Yes.
Which I have heard of that referenced before in other things, in like shows and stuff like that, planting trees outside of Jerusalem. I don't know if that's like a thing or just a fictional thing. I don't know. But they go out planting trees and he gets stung by a hornet. That's where we find out he's deathly allergic to hornets.
It sort of sets the stage for that, yeah.
Which I thought was, because we follow up on that later. Always has to have epinephrine with him.
And hornets and wasps are the menaces of the flying kingdom.
What that is, I don't understand the logic behind that. But maybe
one of these days I'm going to ask God, why did you create termites? Why did you create wasps? There are some things that the world could do without.
Maybe they weren't there until someone decided, hey, let's eat this.
True. It's true.
Food for thought.
Yeah. Adam and Eve.
Absolutely.
Everything bad in life points back to Adam and Eve.
I think they're
not that we don't love Adam and Eve.
There are times.
Because let's be honest, if Adam and Eve hadn't flubbed it up, somebody after them would have. It would not have taken long. So
you're probably right. Yeah. So we've got those are 4 characters, and then we have Damien.
Yes.
Who's the worst? Again, we have a character that's the worst.
But there has to be one in every story.
There does have to be one in every story. Yeah.
And he's a professor as well.
He is a professor as well, American.
Yes, I think he's at Northwestern University.
Yes.
Yes.
I think so. Yeah, because, yes, he was Northwestern. So we have a few different religions so far. Dove and Jessica and Ari are all Jewish. But Ari...
different types of Jewish.
Different types of Jewish. I'm not sure where Dove and Jessica land, but Ari just...
Yeah, because they were
almost doesn't believe in God at all.
Characters. Yes, Ari does not believe in Jesus or God.
Rivka does. Rivka, however, she's secretly... She does not talk about it, but she is a Messianic Jew. She is a Jewish Christian. She believes in Jesus. And she has, in the beginning of the book, it says she has grown tired of, she goes to Berkeley, and she has grown tired of arguing on behalf of her faith.
And I imagine it's hard to be a Christian at Berkeley. I'm just saying.
Berkeley, is there not another university?
Exactly. I don't know. I mean, if you're an archaeology
student, up
student,
to the challenge.
If you're an archaeology student, maybe that's a great place to go to school.
I don't know what colleges offer great archaeology programs.
But then again, it's probably
ours doesn't.
Yeah.
We don't have an archaeology degree.
No.
So I'm not familiar with who does.
Yeah.
I don't even think U of A does.
I don't know. Yeah.
That's a highly specialized degree.
It is.
I imagine it would take a really big university to fund a program like that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Super, super big.
Yeah.
And there you have Berkeley.
I mean, you can always go to Poto Mountain, and like dig for arrowheads, but I'm thinking they're probably wanting more than arrowheads.
I would guess.
Yes. Especially since they're, in Jerusalem doing their dig. So, yeah.
So Ari doesn't believe in God, and Rivka is a Christian. Damien,
which is a point of contention between the two, not far into the book.
Yeah. Damien is just flat up, he's crazy.
Yeah.
You don't know he's crazy right off the bat, but he doesn't really believe in anything. I think you could possibly describe Ari as almost agnostic, because I think he does practice some parts of his faith, the Jewish faith. I was never super clear on that, and that might just be my fault. But the main trouble here is in the beginning is Ari and Rivka. I mean, it blows up when he finds out she is, because she's very evasive when he asks her what temple she goes to, and she tells him, and he's like, so is that conservative? Is it, what type, what sect of the Jewish faith are you in? And she just sort of dodges and hems and haws. Well, he finds out from a cousin, because he mentions it to him, that that's a Messianic temple, and confronts her with it. I, to his credit, not in front of Dove and Jessica. He waits till they're alone. Not to his credit, he sort of blows up.
He does.
And not to
he
her
was
credit,
kind of a jerk.
Yeah, and not to her credit, she sort of does too, but he also kind of had it coming.
Yeah.
So they fight, like big, huge fight.
Yeah, and he even makes a comment like, you believe that he is God, talking about Jesus, and she goes, yes, and he says, then you're a Christian, not a Jew.
Yeah, he says she can't be a Jew.
Yeah.
And a Christian.
And
she
I did not realize Jews hated Christians that much. Did you?
I think some do. I think it's like any group.
Yeah, I mean, Jews these days are they're very hated in society today, and as are Christians. So I always kind of lumped Jews and Christians sort of into the same pool. But yeah, so I was really shocked to see. I mean, there was a lot of Jew hate in this book.
I knew,
I didn't realize Jews hated Christians that much.
Yes, there are, and Christians, Christians in history, and even Christians now, they don't have a great track record.
No.
The Crusades. I don't pretend to know a lot about the Crusades. I know just tiny bits. But it's they killed in the name of God.
The Christians did?
Yes.
Oh, see, I guess I don't remember that, because they made reference several times to so many Jews were killed because of and I was like, I don't remember Jews ever killing.
Well, and
Christians ever killing Jews.
It wasn't in the days of the early church. A lot of people, that was an insult. I mean, up into, and it might even be an insult now. But if you watch like some movies that are set in the 30s or 40s or 50s, you'll hear people sometimes refer to Jews as Christ killers, blamed for the death of Christ.
But Romans are the ones.
Well, Romans, but Jews are the ones who turned him in.
Yeah,
to the Romans.
True.
That's. But if you look
the
at
Romans just did the dirty work.
No one in the Bible ever blames Jews. Paul doesn't blame Jews for the death of Christ. The death of Christ was imminent. It was always going to happen.
It was always going to happen.
Who did it?
Yeah. It was divinely orchestrated.
But there are lots of Christians who blamed and blame for Jesus' death, which I don't understand. If he didn't die, then he couldn't be resurrected.
Yeah, there
would be wouldn't be saved.
There would be no remission for our sins.
Anyway,
but some of those people may not. They may not understand the significance behind the death of Christ.
Did I want anyone to die? Of course not. Was it God's plan? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't understand the logic. You can't be a Christian without the death of Jesus Christ. So
no.
Whatever. But as in all things, hate makes no sense.
Yeah.
Hate makes no sense.
Yeah.
Why would you hate?
Yeah.
There's no logic behind it. It's an emotion. It's a human emotion. And only God and Jesus can remove that from you.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I did see a couple of times Ari even traced the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Back to, well, Ari and Damien both sort of trace the Holocaust back to Paul.
Because they both had kind of an equal kind of hate.
Yes.
Although Ari was willing to put aside his hate a little to help Rivka in her quest.
Yes.
So, because Rivka was the one that was really on the quest to save the Apostle Paul. Yeah. Yeah.
He's in love.
He's in love, yes.
But yeah, it's Damien and Ari are both, to differing degrees, pretty much atheist almost.
Mm-hmm.
Damien much more so than Ari, I have to say.
For sure. Yeah.
But Damien is very tolerant of the Jewish faith.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's just tolerant of the Jewish faith in general, or if he's only doing it for his own ends, because he's there for a reason.
Yes.
And he's doing this all for a reason. And they kind of try to explain it, but just like, dude.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about your brother, but
well,
let's take
and that's one part of the story that I felt like could have just been left out, and it wouldn't have affected the story any.
I appreciated
it was a backstory
that it gave us some insight as to why he's looking at things the way he is. But I don't remember that. Well, he also had a broader perspective. It wasn't just the suffering of Jews. Ari doesn't like Christians because just the suffering of the Jewish people throughout history. He is a much broader perspective, because it's like, without, and I can't remember the passage in the book, but his reasoning is, without Paul, because that's where this all takes us. He wants to assassinate Paul. He's using Ari on this wormhole experiment to go back in time and assassinate Paul. That's his goal. Yes. No one knows that. That's his goal. Without Paul, there's no Book of Acts. There's no, in his line of reasoning follows through no establishing of.
There would be no Christianity.
No papacy, no Christian Scientists, no, I forget all the terms, but his feeling is blah, 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 blah. Technology doesn't get to where it gets to, and therefore his brother doesn't suffer.
Mm-hmm. It was a very convoluted trail of,
He's crazy.
Yeah.
He's crazy. And apparently good looking, but crazy.
You have to expect crazy people to do crazy things.
Crazy people
and to have crazy
things.
thoughts.
That's true.
Yeah.
His line of reasoning was just, it's like, man, for a physicist, you're just all sorts of scurry.
And to kind of give the readers an idea of just the kind of man that Damien is, I want to talk about how Rivka winds up in 57 AD.
Yes.
Because, so basically what happened is they got in this fight in the restaurant.
Yes.
Because Ari doesn't like that Rivka is a Christian, is a Jew who believes in
yes.
God and Jesus. So they get in a fight, both go their own ways, and then a couple of days later, Rivka goes to Ari's lab to, I guess, sort of apologize.
Yeah, it's like the next morning she goes to
make amends.
Yes, she goes to make amends because she feels bad. She threw water in his face.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, if a woman ever does that to me, all bets are off.
I mean,
don't talk to me again.
To be fair, he had it coming.
He did.
There was reason for it. It is extremely rude, but
yeah,
you had it coming.
Yeah.
Insert.
That's just the ultimate disrespect, though, to throw a drink in someone's face.
Insert song from Chicago here. He had it coming.
Exactly. Exactly.
But she, to her credit and to his credit, they both intend to apologize to the other. Next one is just tempers flared, ran high.
Mm-hmm.
They were both a little bit at fault. So she goes to the lab the next morning, and unbeknownst to everyone else, Damien's been there all night, and he's been growing this wormhole.
Yeah,
because his plan is to take off before Ari even gets there. He's been gathering all this stuff. He's got this manifesto,
all this data,
the Unabomber, and I'm going.
He has put a lot of thought into this.
It takes a sharp turn, because before this, there was no indication at all that Damien was just Damien. He was just an American there.
Yeah.
And I was like, how's he figure into this? Well, that's how. So yeah, he's nuts. And
Rivka shows up.
Yeah, she messes up his plans because he was planning to leave.
Yeah, and he has created this virtual reality game.
Yes.
It's called Avatar. And what made me funny, what kind of I thought was funny about this is that he goes into a great deal of explaining what an avatar is. And these days, like that,
you wouldn't need an explanation at all.
Yeah, that kind of ages the book a little because these days, I mean, you have avatars in social media. I mean, everybody knows what an avatar is. Yeah,
there's no way for people in their 20s.
Yeah, but his game, basically, it's a virtual reality game that takes people into into old Jerusalem back in Bible days to the Second Temple. And you can enjoy the sights and sounds of the Second Temple.
It's a VR set.
Which kind of, like, I didn't, and they specifically said that you could also enjoy the smells of that. And I didn't realize. We don't
have, I mean, we do have that.
You're more of a gamer than I am.
It's very, very expensive, I think.
Okay. See that, and that's what I was like, was that part of the fantasy of this, or is that actually a thing?
They even have a theater experience called 4D where a lot of people went to see Twisters. Like that.
That would be cool.
The seats move and you can feel the wind and everything. Hopefully not at the velocity it blows in Twisters, but
you
can feel all that. So, I think we have the technology, but I don't know of it being like available to your average Joe.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So he talks her
virtual reality
into she gets there and Ari is not there.
Yeah, and
so
she hadn't tried it yet. Doug had tried it.
They had told her about it at lunch or at one of their dinners, and she was like, "Oh, that sounds cool. Maybe I'll see it one day." Well, Damien jumps on the opportunity.
Because here's a guinea pig.
Yes, here's a guinea pig. He doesn't know if, like, once somebody goes through the wormhole, is it going to obliterate them?
Yeah,
are they going to get to the other end and not be able to come back?
Yeah, or is it going to collapse? What's going to happen? Yeah, so he's taking a huge chance here, but she shows up and he's like,
here's his little guinea pig, and he doesn't even tell her what he's doing.
No, he
guides her into the closet where the wormhole is.
Her. He had discovered that he could control the direction with a joystick.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of guiding her steps, and then all of a sudden
she's in the wormhole.
Boom.
She wakes up in a cave in 57.
A cave outside
AD.
Jerusalem in 57 AD.
Yeah.
Which is not where you expect to be.
At first she didn't realize. She thought she was still in virtual. She was like, wow, this is really impressive.
Right. Yeah.
Ari's going to finally get his Nobel Peace Prize. And then she realizes, oh, wait, I'm actually in 57 AD.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
And of course, the first thing she comes across is some guy who, because she's wearing a t-shirt and cut off
denim jeans. Yeah.
Has less than pure intentions towards her. She manages to fight him off.
And of course, she doesn't know she's going there, so she has no money. She didn't
no money.
She didn't
not
have the proper apparel.
No.
So she looks like an alien walking around in cut off jeans.
So she's out here in 57 AD, and that's the explanation for why she doesn't just immediately go back through the wormhole, because she's set upon by this guy and she manages to fight him off, but then she can't get back to the cave right away because she doesn't want to worry about meeting up with him again.
Yeah, so or him follow her back or whatever. Yeah.
So once she steps outside, she realizes where she is almost instantly, because it's Jerusalem, but not as she knows it, but she knows enough about history to know what it might have looked like.
Yeah.
Being an archaeologist.
So she's not totally lost.
So she is just, of course, absolutely enthralled. She's like, I have no idea when I'm here, but.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say before we get too deep into it, the reason Damien chose 57 AD out of any other date is because in biblical history, there's precedent of Paul being in Jerusalem during this time.
It's apparently one of the few times you can almost absolutely pinpoint Paul's location at a specific point in time.
Yeah, so that's why
he has chosen this particular time. Is it May?
May 27th, 57 AD.
Yeah. Yes. So,
of course, they didn't call it May back in that day. They weren't on our calendar, but yeah,
they did not. I don't think they ever get into that, but yeah.
Yeah.
So she's wandering around, and then she's going to give it a couple hours and go back.
Mm-hmm.
But she sort of stumbles upon a group of women around a spring she's familiar with. It's there in her time as well.
And it's for those that know the Bible. It's the Pool of Siloam.
The Pool of Siloam.
Yeah, and for those that aren't familiar with the Pool of Siloam, that's where Jesus healed the blind man in the Bible.
Is it?
Yeah. He spit in the dirt and then put it over the guy's eyes and then told him to go wash his eyes in the pool of Bethesda, or in the Pool of Siloam. And then when he did, his eyesight was restored.
I'll be right.
And I always read that story and be like, ew, spit in the mud and put it on my eyes. Ew, Jesus, really?
Yeah, but it gives you back your eyesight.
Well, I mean, I'm saying, yeah.
I mean,
yeah. So anyway, yeah. So she winds up at the Pool of Siloam.
Yes,
there are women there, and they don't like her because of her appearance. Because apparently it was she was showing too much skin.
Well, there was another place she went, and the women chased her away.
Yeah, okay.
But then she went to the Pool of Siloam, and there are a bunch of water carriers there, and one of them decides to help her.
Hannah.
They all seem kind of a little bit scared of her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's not dressed like they are. She's showing skin, and that was very verboten in their day.
So
technical difficulties.
Jewelry is not.
For those aren't watching, her necklace fell off.
So this woman is carrying water, and this man asks her to carry water for her. And I don't know how true this is. It could be, for all I know. I don't know. But Rivka realizes pretty quick that she's not a water carrier.
Yeah.
She carries other things that men might desire.
Yes.
So
yes.
she Hannah is her name, Hana, and she is what they call a Zona, which is a lady of the night, or broad daylight, as the case may be.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take her long to figure that out, and she's just sort of standing outside of Hannah's house going.
Yeah. And she takes Rivka in. She's like, you can't be running around the city looking the way you do.
She does. Yeah. And
because she had no money. Rivka had no money because she didn't know she was going to be thrust into 57 AD.
Yeah. And then she, she says, the truth tellers. I'm like, the truth tellers. What is that?
It took, yeah.
And I didn't really question it until later, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
I was like, okay, so she has some sort of instinct that she listens to.
Yeah.
And I don't know how old Hannah is. We know she was once married and widowed at 15.
Yeah. And she's a grad student. So, I mean,
Hannah.
Oh, Hannah. Oh, Hannah. Yeah.
Rivka is in I think her late 20s.
Yeah.
Ari is in his early 30s.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he's the only one that we ever get an actual age on, but I think Rivka is in her mid to late 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I think. But yeah, they never say how old Hannah is. She's probably about 18 or 19.
Yeah. I got the
widowed at 15.
I felt like she was really young.
She's very young. So she takes Rivka in.
Too young to be a woman of the night.
Too young to be a wife.
Yeah.
But I mean,
yeah. But things were different back then.
Things were different back then. I doubt she was married very long.
13-year-olds got married back then.
So in the meantime, Damien follows after.
He realizes that she made it and it's safe to go through.
Yeah. So Damien follows after.
He's such a weenie, sending a woman in to be it.
I can't say what Damien is.
Yeah.
So he follows after with and he's prepared. He's got these coins that he's been collecting.
Silver coins.
He's got a sort of a costume to wear.
So that he'll fit in.
Yes. Of course, he has blonde hair that sticks him out. But I mean, these are Roman times, and Rome, the Romans conquered Gaul, and
and
I
Rome
think
was
he's also
kind of a
wearing
hub.
Yeah. So I guess it would be pretty odd for a blonde man to be walking around in Jerusalem in the year 57 AD, but not impossible, I suppose.
Yeah.
You've got
especially in a big metropolis like Rome, where there's a lot going on. They have a lot, and plus they're in Rome during the time of a festival, which would have brought a lot more people. It was the festival of something I can't remember.
It was. It almost sounded like Shabbat, but it was.
I wrote it Shavuot. Yeah, Shavuot. Shavuot. So that festival is going on in Jerusalem at the time.
Shabbat.
It's Shavuot.
I'm not Jewish.
Yeah.
Uh,
Me either. So
I'm sorry.
yeah. So presumably you would think there would be a lot of people,
Yes,
foreigners
there's
from
a
out of
festival
town
going on
at the time. Yeah.
coming up, and that is why I think that is partly why Paul is coming. Is for this festival
Because of that festival.
So he follows Rivka and fares much better, really. Although I do think he gets in a fight with someone.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really remember.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually he runs into Rivka.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I started getting suspicious of what Hannah was dealing with, because she was like, oh, he's a good man. I can tell the truth tellers tell me. So I'm like,
yeah.
Do they?
Yeah, the truth tellers are not telling you the truth.
I think we got a case of possession here.
Yeah.
Truth tellers. The voices in your head?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Like, really? Damien's a good man? Sure.
Yeah.
But I still couldn't really, like, does she think he's a good man because, oh, well, he's very handsome and all that sort of thing?
True.
Or is she actually saying that these voices in her head are telling her he's a good man? He's telling the truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Ari arrives to the lab also with every intention of apologizing to Rivka, because I think it was the plan for Rivka to come to the lab the next morning, and he's hoping she's there, that she comes so he can apologize to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember how he figured out. Oh, he sees Rivka's backpack, but the lab is empty.
Yes.
And he sees the readout on the computer and everything. Yeah. And then he finds the manifesto. And of course, it's password protected. He finally gets into it.
And he pieces it all together.
And he sort of pieces it all together, but he still doesn't know why he's there, because he doesn't understand the code that Damien has been using. He's Rivka would understand it. He knows. But he doesn't understand what Damien is talking about. He knows enough to know that the Unabomber's mentioned, and there's all sorts of these weird things going on. And he, to his credit, he calls Dove. He doesn't keep it a secret. He calls Dove, and Dove shows up. And they figure out that they both must have gone through the wormhole, whether on purpose or whether Damien tricked Rivka into going, which they're pretty sure he tricked her. So and then Ari does something both stupid and brave. You know, they're like, well, we've got to fix this. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. There's a grad student, a postdoc student, bless his heart. His Siu?
Is this?
He's Japanese.
Yeah, the Japanese guy.
His Siu. And he's just kind of the glue that holds this all together.
Yeah.
Props to the postdoc student.
Yes.
He's already had a run-in with Damien about paper
of all things.
And now he's sort of Ari's last hope. So, but yeah, Ari decides, you know what? While they're not looking, I'm just going to take a dive through this wormhole. We got to get Rivka back. He doesn't care anything about Damien. Damien can rot for all he cares, but he wants to get Rivka back.
Yeah.
So he goes through the wormhole, and the last thing he hears is Dub being like, Ari, crazy cousin of mine, what are you doing?
Yes.
I have cousins that I felt like that about. Usually when we were growing up. What are you doing? Are you insane? So he goes, and of course he's not prepared either, because he put no thought into this other than, I have to get Rivka back. Very impulsive is Ari. So he has jeans and a t-shirt on that has a mathematical equation on it. Not a mathematical, but it's like a physics type.
And that would have been Greek to me today. So you can imagine in biblical days, when you go back to 57 AD. Yeah.
Yeah. So he runs into someone. He also winds up at the pool of Siloam. It is not a place that holds warm memories for him, because when they were younger, he and Dove were attacked there. And Dove almost died. Ari saved his life. Were Palestinians, I believe. So that place kind of feeds into his whole hatred for Christians.
Yes.
Which I found very interesting, because he talks about how he's very hateful of Christians. It never mentions anything about Muslims, because he says a lot of Palestinians are Christians, which is true. a lot of Palestinians are Muslims too. So, but that's really not germane to the book.
Yeah.
So I guess I can understand why he doesn't blame both parties. This is a book about Christianity. So
yeah,
that makes sense. I suppose I just talked myself through that. But he meets the women, and the women, of course, are kind of looking at him because this boy's in blue jeans, and I mean, he's not an unattractive person. So they're all looking at him like, pick me, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. That's probably a horrible thing to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a whole pool of people, zonas sitting around just waiting for their next proposition.
He's just trying to find Rivka.
Yeah.
And he's come to this place and discovered that he speaks Hebrew. These people don't speak Hebrew. They speak Aramaic. Which Rivka speaks. I mean, she's not fluent, but she speaks, I think, 7 or 8 languages, I think.
Yeah.
And she knows enough Aramaic to get by. So he's just kind of stumbling around with blinders on.
Yeah.
And he manages to understand that she went away with, I think, one of the women. Or no, that's later. He finally leaves the pool of Siloam, and he that's when he runs into Brother Baruch.
Mm-hmm.
Who
kind of takes him in.
Yeah, Baruch takes him in. So
because it was very verboten back in that day for men and women to talk or to be in the same room. I mean, to even be in the same room with each other.
Yes, in public.
I didn't realize that either. I mean, I knew the Bible talks about, if you're in church and if you have a question, you ask your man about it. When you get home, you don't speak in church. But I didn't realize just how men and women did not.
No.
I mean, women had to walk behind men. Like Baruch, when they were all walking down the street, like Baruch didn't even want to talk to Rivka.
And that was I think some of the problem that the Sanhedrin had with Jesus was he counted women among his followers.
Yes.
Women were not. You didn't teach women about.
No.
Not officially. I mean, they knew things, but it was through the knowledge of their fathers and husbands, not through the knowledge of a rabbi necessarily.
Well, and it was probably why Paul was not liked a lot in his day either, because we did a podcast episode about Euodia. Euodia was very instrumental in the early Christian church. Euodia and Syntyche, and there are women sprinkled throughout the Bible that were instrumental in bringing the gospel to the early church.
Yeah. Jesus and Paul both had issues with the Sanhedrin because of women and Gentiles.
Mm-hmm.
So he meets up with this Baruch fellow.
Yeah.
And they strike up a little bit of a friendship because Baruch is a scholar and therefore speaks Hebrew. So they can kind of communicate.
Yeah.
Aramaic, I guess, is what you would call the common tongue, the common language at this point in time. But if you're a scholar, you're going to learn more of the other languages, and amongst them is Hebrew. So Baruch speaks Hebrew, and Ari sort of speaks Hebrew. So,
yeah, they muddle through. And Ari eventually learns that Baruch is the 57 AD equivalent of Rivka. Basically. So he doesn't know how he feels about that, but Baruch has taken him in. He's been very kind to him. And he doesn't hate Rivka. It's just, he hates what she believes. So it's not that he hates the individuals, but he kind of hates in general. Collectively.
Yeah. So he and Baruch strike up friendship. Baruch takes him in, and of course, it's funny because he asks him what his shirt means. So he's trying to explain it to him, but it's a physics equation. How do you explain it?
Exactly, when physics is not a thing yet.
It's not even invented.
Yeah.
Well, not invented, but discovered.
You're right. Yeah.
It's funny the way they talk to each other, and that's, again, like we said earlier.
Yeah, and they never told anyone that they came from 2020, whatever. They just said we came from a country far away.
They've muddled through on our country is far away. We come from a far away country.
Yeah. They don't ever talk about the time machine, or not time machine, but all that.
So Baruch and Ari says, I think she probably went to the pool of Siloam, and Baruch's like, I want to go to the pool of Siloam. but he goes to ask the women, who of course speak Aramaic, and so does Baruch, if they've seen anyone matching Rivka's description, and they have. So they point them in the direction of Hannah's home. So Baruch and Ari take off. And in the meantime, guess who else is there? Damien, who seems to be striking up a flirtation with Hannah, and yay for that.
Yeah.
So Baruch leaves Ari, and he's like, no, I can't be near that house if one of my brothers sees me, stuff. And Ari's like, you're everyone in your brotherhood religious group lives far from here. Why?
Yeah.
But he doesn't question it.
But
he understands.
Find out later in the book that and we'll get into that later. Yeah, they do have a connection.
Yes. So he knocks on the door, and Damien opens it, and that's when the fight is on. Because Damien has been telling Rivka all this time that Ari's the one that tricked her and put her through the wormhole, and then Damien called the police, and Ari was arrested, and all this nonsense. I'm just like, are you buying this, really? And to her credit, Rivka does not buy it fully because it doesn't sound like Ari. Even with the argument that they had the night before, like he's mad enough to send me to another century. Okay, but she plays along.
Yeah.
But as soon as Ari sees Damien, he just basically just tackles him. But
the brawl is on.
Yes, and I don't think we mentioned it before, but Damien he's strong. He's older than any of them. I think he's in his late 30s, early 40s.
I don't remember.
He's close to middle age. But he was an athlete, football player in high school. He's kept himself in shape. He's a big guy, broad shouldered, bigger than Ari. And Ari doesn't really stand a chance beyond the fact that he is pure rage at the moment. And so Damien, he's pretty quick on his feet, but he's not quite as slick or as smart as he thinks, because he starts, right in with the lies, and Ari, I don't know how you escaped from the police and all this stuff, and has Hannah bring rope to tie Ari up once he gets him pinned. And Rivka tells him to leave. She's like, I want to talk to Ari. He's like, Miss Myers, and that just ticks her off, because, why are you telling me what to do?
Yeah.
She's already in this land where she can't even look a man in the eye. And now this guy from her time is trying to tell her what to do that she barely knows. And she's like, shut up. So she makes him leave, and finally gets the truth out of Ari, and it sounds more like the truth to her.
Yeah.
So, and Hannah's like, oh no, he's lying. Just like, this is just, I'm really thinking this poor girl is possessed. Which is, we hear about that a lot in biblical times.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
There's no telling what all she's been exposed to. And, I still feel bad for her, but I'm like, Hannah, just shut up.
Yeah.
Be quiet. Be quiet.
Just sit there and be pretty.
So they decide, whatever this is for, we need to get back, but let's stay for just a little bit, because they're both scholars and they've got to.
Yeah.
They're curious. They want to know. They want to know. And I can't blame them.
Yes. I don't blame them at all.
But it hasn't dawned on Rivka yet, really, how close. She's kind of thought about it, but there's no way she can talk to him that Paul's going to be there. Damien has every intention of using her to figure out exactly where Paul's going to be.
Yes, because Rivka's the one that has that knowledge.
Yes, she's the one that has that knowledge. Ari wouldn't have that knowledge. He's Jewish, and all of this is in the New Testament. And he's not a scholar of history. He's a physics professor. So there's no way he would know.
Yeah.
But Rivka has this knowledge, and Damien has gleaned it from her. And he's brought himself a gun.
Yes.
To kill Paul.
Yes.
Because who can heal a gun wound in the year 57 AD?
Exactly.
I know, but that's not.
Yeah.
That's not the point.
Yes, that's not the point.
So they figure out pretty fast that Damien, they don't know why Damien's there, but it can't be for anything good because he's lied to Rivka and lied about all sorts of things with Ari. And
yeah.
And meantime, Dav and Jessica are back in, which I didn't expect a back and forth, but we got a little bit of a back and forth. But Dav and Jessica are back in Jerusalem, present day Jerusalem, or 2005 Jerusalem, and trying to convince everyone to keep the wormhole open.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is they've only got a few days because there's a sect, and I can't remember the name of it. There's not a division. There's a sect of the Jewish faith that is very, very strict and says that it will be a violation of the Sabbath.
The Sabbath, yeah.
To keep it on through the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
So they're wanting to shut it off, and Dove and Jessica's second cousin, who happens to be a lawyer, they're fighting in the
And for those that don't know, the Sabbath back in their day, we consider Sunday the Sabbath, but back in their day, in the Jewish, they consider Saturday
the Jewish faith,
the Sabbath.
Yes. So they're trying to get it opened through Shabbat, which they still call it Shabbat,
mm-hmm.
I believe, in their language. Do I sound condescending? I'm sorry. I'm trying to be respectful.
No.
So they're dealing with that fight on their end. And we don't spend a lot of time there, but enough to understand what's going on. So Ari and Rivka aren't aware that they have a absolute... Ari knows the wormhole. It's not super stable.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't know that there's people on the other end that are wanting to shut it down by a certain time. And it's interesting because eventually they go back to the cave and they can talk to people on the other side.
Yeah.
That's not something I have ever experienced in anything I have watched about wormholes.
That may have been a creative liberty he took. I don't know.
But I don't know. Maybe it's possible.
Were they actually talking through the wormhole?
It was like the cell signal.
The self signal kind of came. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like the cell signal could get through. If they got close enough, I think he steps kind of into the wormhole, but he doesn't go through.
Yeah, kind of like kept one foot
and
in,
that's
one
not
out.
That's absolutely not a thing. You walk through the event horizon of the wormhole, and that's it. You're gone.
Mm.
It sends you through. You don't keep walking.
Yeah.
So that was something new to me. Like I said, all I know about wormholes.
Me too. I know. Next to nothing about it.
That's all I know. And there could be several theories at play here as to how they work.
Yeah.
This may be one of them. I'm sure someone somewhere has established a wormhole, but I don't want to know about it.
Mm-hmm. I want to stay in our current day.
Leave the sarcophaguses alone and leave the wormholes alone.
Yes.
Please.
Yes. Never open a sarcophagus. In a movie, if somebody opens a sarcophagus, it is fixing to go down.
Yeah,
Bad things are about to happen.
Things they're finding in ancient Egypt. Oh, we dug this up. Leave it alone.
Leave it alone. Yeah, we found this in a pyramid. Leave it alone. Do not open it.
Put it in a case somewhere. Seal it up. Leave it alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they figure out that he's there for some reason, but they're not sure why. And they manage to get through deduction, I think. Rivka and Ari together figure out he's here to kill Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Because while Rivka sees ammo, she goes to the place where Damien's staying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, y'all. This is just I'm all over the place.
Well, the book was kind of all over the place. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way, but there's a lot going on in the book.
Well, Ari gets stung.
Yes.
Ari gets stung by a hornet. Damien breaks into brother Baruch's home, because of course he does. And he steals Ari's backpack because he's afraid that Ari has brought his manifesto with him.
Because Damien lied to Rivka and told her that Ari was the one.
Yes. That had malicious intentions.
Yes, and that he had intention of sending Rivka to 57 AD and then was going to trap her over there.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's stolen the backpack because he knows if Rivka sees that manifesto, she will figure out why he's there.
Mm-hmm.
So he steals Ari's backpack, and
which has his thing in it in case
which
he gets
has
stung.
epinephrine in it. Ari did not bring the manifesto, which was goofy. Didn't bring any of this stuff, but he brought, he's got some granola bars, he's got epinephrine, because he carries a backpack with him in Israel and or in Jerusalem, around the outskirts of Jerusalem, and he's prepared.
Yeah,
he's just a prepared person, Boy Scout.
Well, and if you're that deathly afraid of or deathly allergic,
he's got a fatal allergy to hornets.
Yeah.
So,
and again, Damien, being the charming man that he is.
Yeah. So Damien meets up with Rivka on the streets. He's stolen the backpack, and they decide to go back to Damien's house. Rivka's just sort of playing it cool, and to her credit, she does it pretty well. They get back to Damien's house, and Damien sort of peeks around the corner to make sure, because Ari's backpack is in this home he's renting.
Yes.
So he has to cover it up. Well, he tosses his duffel bag on it, but his duffel bag's not zipped, and it gaps open, and you can see the gun and the ammo. So he's trying to zip it up real fast, and the zipper gets stuck. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
So he just kind of tries to fold the flaps together. I've done that. I've done that with my purse.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Just don't look inside.
Yeah.
And gets nervous. He's managed to cover the gun up, but not the ammo. And he gets nervous when Rivka gets up and starts pacing. And then she finally leaves, and he's like, oh, well, nope. She saw it. She knows he has a box of ammo.
Yeah, she knows something's up.
Why does he have a box of ammo? So her and Ari are talking it over. Why would he bring ammo? Self-defense? Why do you need a gun for defense against swords?
Yeah.
I mean, what are you
protecting? Yeah.
So it's not self-defense. What are you planning? So they're talking and talking. Well, who does he want to hurt? He doesn't want to hurt Rivka because he hasn't hurt her at all. He's only hurt Ari because Ari punched him first.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to think, and finally it dawns on them. Well, Paul's here. He's after Paul. He wants to kill Paul. Rivka's not okay with this.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I don't think so.
Because to get rid of Paul in his psychotic logic, to get rid of Paul is to get rid of Christianity. If he can get rid of Paul, then Christianity, all those millennia later, will never be a thing.
Yeah. So Rivka is absolutely not okay with this. She's like, oh, this is not going to happen. And Ari's like, well, oh, this isn't good.
Mm-hmm.
So Ari doesn't really care if Paul and
no,
Ari,
because he doesn't like Christianity either.
In his defense, he also believes strongly that logistically, Damien cannot kill Paul, because you cannot change
that would
history.
Rewrite history.
That is his theory. You cannot change history. And if anytime you watch something that's time travel, Back to the Future, somewhere in time, any of those time travel,
you have to be very careful to not rewrite history.
There's always a differing theory. You can change history. You shouldn't change history. History can't be changed. There's all sorts of works out there that have different theories. This particular one is it can't happen.
Yeah, and I'm not bothered by any of it,
which is fine,
because I just look at it as entertainment. Yeah, I'm just like, why do we need to suck the fun out of it by saying, oh, this is not real? Enjoy it.
I accept all of it.
Yeah.
So that's Ari's take on it. But Rivka's just fueled. This is not going to happen.
Not going to happen on that watch.
She got tired of fighting for her faith at the university. She went to Jerusalem for escape. This lights a fire under her.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, no, this ain't happening. Not on my watch.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm here. I'm here to stop him. So they do manage to stop him. He tries once, or is going to try once. At an appointed time, there's a riot in the temple when Paul is there, and the mob brings him outside the temple to stone him, I believe.
And that's actually in Scripture.
Yes,
it's in Acts 23:12.
The Romans arrive, and they're kind of cavalry.
Mm-hmm.
They stop it, and Paul winds up addressing the mob.
Yeah,
and that's Damien's first First try. He's going to try. And Rivka's just in the mob, and she's like, I can't see. I can't see. I'm 5'2". I can't see.
Yeah.
And she finally spots a hill.
It's like a rock pile, isn't it? Yeah,
it's a rock pile, construction going on, and the construction workers have all left the area to join this mob. They're listening to Paul speak.
Yes.
And she stands on it, and she's the one that starts the riot that this particular speech ends because of.
Yes.
He's carried out by a mob, and there's a riot.
Out, kill him.
Kill him. So she's like,
and she basically starts the mob.
So she starts the riot, the
Which
biblical
is
riot.
This little 5'2" woman starts a mob.
Yes. Unfortunately, it also makes Damien realize that her and Ari must still be around, because he was under the impression they went back.
Yeah.
There was this whole thing where they were supposed to meet him there, and so he's spying on them at the cave. And as far as he knows, they went back. Nope, they're still there, but that exposes them. So now he knows they're still there, and he's going to be even more careful. And I really feel like I'm making a huge hash of this. But they've discovered also, they've taken Rivka to stay with a lady named Miriam, because she can't keep staying in the house of Azona.
Yes.
She has some clothes now, and they've taken Rivka to Miriam, who seems very nice.
She's a nice lady.
But we've also discovered that Baruch and Hannah have a little bit of a connection. A year ago, he solicited her services
and did not
pay
for the services.
He seems deeply ashamed of his behavior.
Yeah, he is repentant.
Very, very, very repentant, deeply ashamed. And he pays her now, gives her 2 dinar, which is apparently
a lot of money, apparently.
Quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
More than she would normally get. And she sort of forgives him.
Yeah. Well, and doesn't she, like, when they realize that they're all kind of have been thrown together as a group, didn't she, like, threaten to, like, tell everyone?
She did, I think.
Yeah.
She threatened
at first.
to sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty apparent there's a connection there. And he does apologize and gives her money.
Yeah. Because he does not want this getting out, that he had a rendezvous with Azona.
No. So that's been revealed. And now all of them, well, not all of them, but Rivka specifically, she's like, he's going to try again. There's going to be another time to try. And we've just got to stop him. At this point,
they know he's not going to leave until he has his shot.
So Ari's he doesn't really care one way or another, but he's along for the ride because Rivka.
Yeah. The things we do for love. When we
exactly.
Love will make you do weird things.
And he has actually gone so far as to tell Rivka he loves her, and Rivka's just like, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
I got other things on my plate, and you are not a Christian, so we have a little bit of a problem, but let's set this aside. And she's very driven. It's pinpoint laser focus.
Yes.
It's like
nothing's going to deter her from her goal.
And she comes to the conclusion that if there's any man in Jerusalem who will talk to a woman, it's a shopkeeper, which is brilliant on her part. I never would have thought of that. I'm going to get me some info from a shopkeeper.
Because they want to make money.
Because they have to talk. Who does most of the shopping?
Women. Yeah, especially in that day.
So
a man would never have gone to market and bought the meat or whatever.
It would be acceptable for a shopkeeper to speak with a woman. So she goes and finds one, and it's one who apparently is very, I can't remember his name, but he becomes a very celebrated. He is a member of the Sanhedrin. And
Gamaliel.
No, that's Paul's nephew.
Oh, we're talking about someone else.
Or someone else's nephew. The shopkeep. I want to say it's was it Benjamin?
I don't think I noted his name.
I can't remember, but in history, he is going to become
a major figure.
Yes, a major figure. And She makes a mistake at first because she refers to him by a title he does not have yet.
Yeah, and people scoff her for it because they're like, he's a nobody.
Yeah. But she gets some information from him, including the information about, it's either his nephew or it's Paul's nephew, but whoever it is, it's Gamaliel
or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he's
and
someone
he
who, yes, he's someone who biblically saves Paul's life.
Mm-hmm.
So she's afraid that Damien is going to try to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So she's kind of on the case with that. They do find him in the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
I think he tries to attack Rivka. Yes. He finds Rivka and tries to attack her. Are we getting into spoiler territory? I feel like we are.
It depends on where you're going. Probably. Do we need to call it a spoiler zone? Because we are getting toward the end of the book.
Yeah. We're going to go for a spoiler zone.
Okay, so before we get into the spoiler zone, because there may be some people that leave, I don't know how long this is going to go on, so I can't tell you to skip to. If you like what you hear, follow us on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on. I think that's it right now. Facebook, Instagram, Bookish Introverts podcast. We're starting to get emails from people, which is really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're at. If you want to email us, we're at bookishintrovertspodcast@gmail.com. We got an email this week from a lady. You remember in the last episode, we kind of branched off a little into the Mandela effect?
Yes.
This lady had never heard of that. And
really?
Yeah. So her name was...
Is she sure she's never...
I don't know. And I'm blanking on her name right now. Anyway, I was going to call her out, but I'm totally blanking on her name right now. Anyway, she was like, "Oh my gosh, that Mandela effect that you guys talked about was so interesting. I wish y'all hadn't stopped talking about it so soon." So she wants us to talk about it again. I don't know. That's not really, that was just sort of an impromptu thing that I brought up. So I don't know that we'll ever, but I don't know. Maybe.
I imagine it'll probably come up again.
Maybe one of these days we can do. So anyway, so she was like, she was really interested in that. And then she was like, "Y'all just stop talking about it." So
sorry.
Yeah.
It was probably one of our rabbit trails.
Marlena or Marlena. I can't remember her name. But anyway, thank you for emailing us.
Thank you.
It's really exciting that people are listening and that we're starting to hear from people. So if you ever want to say anything to us, feel free to message us through social media or email us. We love hearing from you guys.
Yes,
it makes us feel like we're not just talking into dead space when people interact with us. And so anyway, so that said, reach out to us, follow us on social media. And now we're going to go into a spoiler
zone.
Yeah. So,
okay. So Ari and Rivka have decided they've got to stop Damien at Rivka anyway, at any cost.
Yeah.
They go back to the cave and they tell Dev what's going on. And the plan is for him to slip through, some paper, I think, a note and a gun so they can fight Damien at 4 a.m. That's the plan. Unfortunately, Dev gets there and it's not the guard, because they have a guard set up outside the wormhole. It's not the guard he was counting on that he knew he could lure away. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. He manages to get the note through, but not the gun. So they still do not have any way really to fight Damien. And they separate. Ari and Baruch are at, I think they wind up at Miriam's. I don't know where they are, but Hannah is there. And she's saying that, "I know why Hannah's there." Damien pays Hannah a visit. And this is another reason why Damien is the worst.
Yeah.
Because he wants to know where Rivka is. Rivka obviously isn't there anymore. She's living with Miriam. And his plan was to sneak into the house and kill Rivka. But he gets there and Hannah's the only one there, and Hannah's sleeping in the buff, and Damien
because
decides,
it's hot. It's hot in Jerusalem.
Yeah. And Damien decides, well, you know what? As long as I'm here.
There's a unscantily clad woman here, so let's take advantage of the situation.
Yes. And of course, he's, again, like we said, a big guy. There's no way Hannah could fight him off. So
especially when he sneaks up on you while you're asleep, you don't even have the chance to protect yourself because you're asleep.
So she's very confused. This ends with him leading her through the streets with the gun pressed to her back. She has no idea what the gun is, but she's terrified, as she should be.
Oh, yeah. She's more afraid of him than the gun because she doesn't know what it can do.
She's just been assaulted, and she says he should not have taken what she did not give, which I thought was a good sentence.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably difficult for someone, a Zona, to think that way. It sort of made me think of Lonesome Dove, which is again a rabbit trail, but it always hits me hard because there is a Zona, Lori, who is kidnapped and assaulted, and when she's rescued, it just sort of takes her some time, and she breaks down and says, "They shouldn't have taken me."
Yeah, well, but when
you're selling.
Yeah, but when you're a Zona, you still have some control over. No, I don't want you or your money.
I think it takes. That just always gets to me, that they shouldn't have taken me, because it's like she's struggling with it.
Yeah, because even if you're doing it for money, you still have the right to say no.
Yeah. So
when you force yourself, you take their right away to say no.
Yeah, it reminded me a little of that scene, and lots of things remind me of Lonesome Dove. It's a sickness.
Yeah.
Neither here nor there. But it got the same emotional reaction from me. My heart broke for her anyway, but to have to come to that conclusion again when you've already been assaulted in a different way, really.
Yeah.
Not quite the same. It was, everything else was consensual.
I think that occupation really kind of breaks your spirit anyway. I feel like.
For sure it makes you cynical.
Yeah.
I would think. And because Hannah is very cynical. For good reason. I don't blame her. There's not many things a woman could have done in that time.
Exactly.
Other than beg on the streets.
Yeah.
And she brings that up later, but he's leading her, he's, gun to her back. She's terrified, and she's going through confusion because why would these voices she's relied on for so long tell her he's a good man when he's quite clearly not a good man? She's confused and scared, but she manages, and I don't remember how, but she manages to get away. She's like, no, I'm not giving her up.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, I'm not giving Rivka to you. She manages to escape, and Damien eventually, he has a silencer on his gun.
Mm-hmm.
He tries to shoot her. He misses. He tries to shoot her twice, and it does not work.
People in books are as bad at shots as people in movies.
Well, and he does say, in TV that shot would have hit, but this is reality, and reality is very seldom the same. It's a pistol that he has. It's not like he has a,
Yeah. It's not a high precision weapon. Yeah.
Not like he has a sniper rifle.
Yes.
So it's believable with a pistol. I think she's 30 feet away, 50 feet away.
Plus, I think it was at night. Where wasn't it?
They were going through the streets at night.
So basically, he only had moonlight.
She runs away, and of course, she knows Jerusalem better than he does. So I imagine she just goes all sorts of crazy loops and twirls.
Yeah, like circuitous.
But she does wind up at Miriam's, and Rivka and Miriam take her in, and then Rivka leaves the next morning. She's like, "This has got to stop. This has got to stop." And she's also intelligence gathering. Ari and Baruch get there and find out what's happened. And Hannah's like, the truth tellers are saying he's going to kill her. He's going to kill her. I see him standing above her. She's dead already. And that's when Baruch realizes these truth tellers. So we get a little bit of a cleansing.
Yes.
And it doesn't happen immediately. It takes. Ari's watching this going.
For all you Pentecostals out there, you will love this scene.
It was. Very
I say that because I'm Assembly God. So,
it was very, very interesting. To see it written out. I've seen it. Sort of. I don't watch The Exorcist, but there is an attempted exorcism, religious exorcism in the first episode of The Chosen. It doesn't go into a lot of detail. And it's not like this, because doesn't work.
In the Pentecostal era, we call it casting out demons. We don't call it exorcism.
It doesn't work in that episode of The Chosen, but it does seem to work here. There's a little bit of description, but not much. There's the whole voice thing. And it takes time. Like even later on when they say her, she's still, apparently there are several.
Yeah.
So Ari rushes off. He's like, I've got to save Rivka. So he's running through. She can't be far. She'd only left, I think, maybe half an hour ago. Can't be far from the home. Baruch follows, luckily. And sure enough, Damien is standing over Rivka in the street, which I don't know what everyone around them is thinking, but because it is daytime.
Yeah.
He's standing over her. He's already shoved her, hit her. And he's standing over her with a gun pointed at her. She sees Ari and yells for him, but he's too far away. He's like 20 feet away. He's never going to get there in time. But Baruch he manages to, I think it's him, sort of throw Damien off. But of course he tosses Baruch aside because, again, big guy. But by the time that happens, Ari is there and he is just nothing but rage. And just between Ari and Baruch, they managed to take Damien down. And Baruch's especially pretty. He breaks Damien's arm, like I think shatters his right hand or something. He's pretty brutal.
He does some damage.
In the chaos, Rivka goes for the gun and takes it apart and smashes it. There's no way it can be used. Smashes it with a big rock.
I was like, "Go, Rivka!"
It's like, yay!
Woman power.
But Damien hurts Rivka again, and she falls to the ground unconscious. And Ari and Baruch are so worried about her, Damien gets away in the crowd. So I'm pretty sure she has some sort of concussion. Dang it, we never went into Ari and his hornet sting.
Well, we kind of hit on it. But
but we didn't.
We kind of.
There was no precedence because by then Ari has already sort of changed part of his outlook because he's been stung by this hornet, and he has no epinephrine because Damien took his backpack, and Rivka gets him to Baruch, or gets Baruch to him. And Baruch prays over him. We've already seen Baruch pray over people with both a headache and a cancerous lesion. And Baruch prays over him, and Ari wakes up and he's like, what happened while I was young? He has no scientific explanation for what's happened other than God healed him. So his outlook has already started to change a little. He is still not a believer in Jesus Christ. But he's like, I can't explain it except it's God. So they're having Baruch is praying over her, but it's not. He's like, I've got to take her back. He can't kill Paul now. He doesn't have a gun. He said, we've got to get her back to our time. Which felt
kind of naive to me because if you're going to bring one, what makes you think he didn't bring a second or third?
Exactly.
So I felt like that was kind of a naive.
But he was also panicked. She was unconscious. She was not. By all accounts, it was not good. It was not a good outlook. So he's carrying her back to the cave. Baruch and I think Miriam are with him, and they're just hot-footing it to the cave. He's going to go through. He calls Dove. He's like, let us through. And we're down to the wire. It is Shabbat. Basically, we're coming up on it. It's like 5 minutes.
And of course, they don't know it, but they're fighting against the clock and don't even know it because on the other end, they're about to shut down the wormhole because the Sabbath is almost
so
here.
He gets there and he tells Dove what's going on the phone. And Dove's like, listen, you've got to come back because they're going to shut this down in like 2 minutes time. So get her and get back. Well, when he steps out of the wormhole to get Rivka, she's just standing there. Just fine.
Go if you want, but I'm not.
She's fine. She's like, I'm not leaving. I
Haven't
need
saved
to stay.
Paul yet.
I haven't. I don't know. She's like, there's a reason. I have to stay. I have to stay. And Ari's like, we've got to go or we're going to be trapped here forever. And she said, then I'll be here forever. So Ari's like, this is crazy. And he goes kind of through the wormhole and he can see everyone and they can kind of see him. And again, I was like, not how I know wormholes work, but sure. I'm not the physicist.
We'll give you a little bit of creative liberty.
I am not the physicist.
Yeah.
So like, I think his mother's on the phone or she's there or something.
Yeah.
She's like, Ari, please come back. And I was like, come on. We got to go. And at the last minute, he's just like, I can't leave her.
Yeah.
I love her. I'm sorry. And closes the door because this wormhole's in a closet, which is hilarious. Closes the door and they shut the wormhole down. And that's it.
Which
They're
I guess
trapped.
maybe that's a safety feature to keep somebody from accidentally walking into a wormhole.
Yeah. So that's it. They're done. They're trapped there. They cannot get back, which I wasn't expecting. I didn't expect that. I really thought there would be some way for them to get back, but nope. They shoot the power supply.
But there are 2 books after this, so I'm sure they'll get back at some point. But
so that's that was very interesting to me. I was like, okay, that's it. We're here now.
Yeah.
So they
may as well get used to the
he's
57 way of living.
He's mad at Rivka for not going back, and she's like, you can't be mad at me.
I didn't force you to come back.
I didn't force you to come back. It's like, dang it, I love her. So they decide. Well, she decides she's still convinced Damien's going to do something, and that's where the nephew comes in.
Yeah,
she's checking up on him. Apparently, he's very sick. So she's like, well, if he doesn't get to Paul tonight to warn him, then about this plot by these 40 conspirators to kill him, then he will die.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's trying to make sure he gets there. And he, to his credit, he's apparently very sick, but he sneaks out of his house at night to get to the prison where Paul is and warn him. And she follows him, and someone sneaks out of the shadows to follow him, and she yells, Damien. And it makes the shadowy figure stop and look back. Well, it turns out not to be Damien, just a bandit. So, but he does wind up hurting the nephew.
Which people back in that, or at least as it's portrayed in the book, like they did not like the name Damien because apparently there's an evil connotation to that name.
It's not. I don't think it's Damien exactly. I think it's Damon.
It's a name that sounds
very similar.
Yeah, because people had negative reactions to his name. In the 57.
Yes, very much so.
AD.
But she is actually. It's so funny. It's kind of a self-fulfilling type of thing. She is actually the reason the nephew gets to the prison because she helps him along, even though he's like, you're a woman. It's not. And she's like, look,
you need the help.
Priorities.
Yeah. I'm here. Deal with it.
And to his credit, when they part at the prison, he says, blessings be upon you, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So she's happy that she's helped at least that part. Paul will be warned about this conspiracy by these 40, which I don't remember much about. I really need to read Acts again because it's been quite a while since I've read Acts, but she's excited that she helped that, but she still thinks Damien, and sure enough, Damien has another gun.
He's not done.
He has a backup gun. It does not have a silencer, but he has a backup gun. So there's a point in time where the Romans are going to escort Paul at night.
And it's a pretty long journey.
Yeah. From Jerusalem all the way to Rome. So they go, I think, from Jerusalem to Caesarea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then to Rome.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a long march.
Mm-hmm.
But they're doing it at night. And during that time, it's just kind of, it'll be 400 Roman soldiers.
Oh yeah,
with this prisoner.
Yeah,
but they can only ride
that seems
5.
Like overkill.
They can Rome is nothing if not overkill. Let's be fair. I think they can only march 5 abreast on the road.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, the disguise. I forgot. It cracked me up. That was when Rivka got caught because Damien was waiting for something. And he had gotten he'd dyed his hair and dyed his skin and everything. He'd gotten this elaborate costume. And Rivka realized this was just before he attacked her. This is when she caught him trying to do something. Because she's watching him. He's like, no one will ever recognize me. He's still wearing his Reeboks.
He's still wearing his, that's hilarious. Yeah.
You absolute ninny.
And you're going to stick out in 57 AD wearing a pair of Reeboks. I don't care who you are or how well you're camouflaged.
I had to put my phone down because I was like, this absolute moron. That is hilarious. He's like, no one's going to catch me. Haha. Just keep these Reeboks on.
While my Reeboks are glowing in the dark.
Yes. All the popular Jewish noblemen wore Reeboks.
Yes.
Little known fact
of history.
But yeah, that cracked me up. That's a little bit of that humor.
Yeah.
That came through.
Yeah, his humor was very subtle, but
it
hit.
Well, it was realistic. That's why it was.
Yeah, and it hit well. Yeah.
When it's subtle, that makes it more realistic.
For sure.
But
yeah.
The Reeboks.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I laughed when I read that because I could just see him in his 57 AD garb with a pair of Reeboks. Yeah.
Like, dude. My guy, you can spring for sandals.
Exactly.
What's the matter with you? But obviously, you need Reeboks for cliff climbing, which is exactly what Damien is doing one-handed.
That he needed
with
the
his
traction.
Left hand. Yes. So he needed the Reeboks for traction. Sandals didn't have that kind of traction.
Yeah.
Unless you got I don't know.
And I guess
Jordan,
at this point,
the Jordan Air sandals were available.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she figures out he's going to try there.
And I think this is his last
his last chance because once Paul gets to Rome, he is in prison there. I believe they said 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So this is pretty much the only other time he's going to get to do this.
Yeah.
So she convinces Ari, we've got to do this. In the meantime, on the side story, Baruch and Hannah seem to have made up. He proposes to her in front of all the Brotherhood.
And it causes a great offense to her.
And she's very offended because she thinks he's mocking her.
She thinks he's playing with her.
And Ari, bless his heart, plays matchmaker. It's kind of sweet.
Yeah.
He actually brings Hannah back to Baruch. And they reconcile, I guess you could say. Baruch is the one that, he says he's always fallen to the temptation. We get a little bit of insight into him. He says he's always fallen to the temptations of women. And Hannah was the last one.
Yeah.
And he knew on his last visit that he had been entered by an evil spirit. And that's what caused him to panic.
Yeah.
And he ran away and met up with another person who actually, an older man who I guess is passed away now, but he cast the evil spirit out of Baruch. And since then, Baruch has been like, nope.
Straight and narrow.
Straight and narrow. So, but he brings Hannah back.
And sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom.
It does.
To finally
and that was his rock bottom.
Okay,
that was his rock bottom.
Yeah.
So Ari brings Hannah back to Baruch's after she has, humiliated him in front of his Brotherhood. But he still loves her, and Hannah doesn't even finish her sentence before Baruch's just like, you got me. I'm yours. And Ari's like, yep, he'll do anything for her. So they're probably leaving Jerusalem because you can't be married to a Zona and still maintain.
Yeah.
I imagine they're going probably a ways away.
Probably,
they might go to Rome. They might go somewhere else. I don't know. But I hope we're not completely finished with them. If I read the next book, I'd like to think we're not.
And I kind of think I will.
Yeah,
at some point.
I might as well.
I'm not a series person, but I think I'll probably will read the second one.
Yeah, I very well might also. But since that's happened, so Rivka's very happy about it. Because Ari, when he meets up with her, he's like, guess what happened with Baruch and Hannah. And she said, what, they eloped? Just joking. And he's like, yeah, I think that's exactly what they did. It's like, wait, what? That was really funny. I liked it. But Rivka convinces Ari, we've got to get to this, this road, this cliffside. She says, an ambush. He's going to ambush them. Which we get his point of view while he's waiting there up on this cliff with a cigar.
Yes.
He has an obsession with Independence Day.
Uh-huh.
So this is like his cigar before.
Which I love because that's a great movie.
It is a great movie, but it's just so funny. I'm like, okay.
Which kind of plays into how his ruse got, because.
Yeah, well, that's what gives him away, because
they saw that red light in the distance. This red light, which at first I thought, was he have a laser on that gun? Yeah.
But no, it's the warmth
of the cigar.
From the cigar, the red.
Yeah, like when you suck in, it makes the end of the cigar blaze.
So she sees it, and
well,
she's
guess
like,
it does with cigars. It does with cigarettes. So
well, that's true. But in the clear night sky, because they make mention of that several times, how the air smells clear, because it's pre-industrial revolution.
Yeah, there's no smog.
I don't know how the air smelled pre-industrial revolution, because I didn't live pre-industrial revolution. Everyone that's here has never lived pre-industrial revolution.
We have no idea what clean air smells like.
Yeah, we don't know how blue the sky was. We don't. I'm not a climate person, but I know it's probably not. It's not as clean as it was before the Industrial Revolution.
No,
and that's just facts. You don't do all that without doing something to the air.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they see him. Rivka sees him before Ari, because Ari's climbing up the
cliff.
The cliff.
There's a little ledge up there that he could sit in and kind of hide and be out of vision. Yeah,
it's a fairly non-steep slope, but she is still kind of hurt, I believe. Mm-hmm. So Ari's like, well, I'll climb, even though he's afraid of heights.
Yeah.
And he's up there, but then Rivka sees the cigar a little bit a ways away. So she's like, well, I'm just going to go on my own.
And we know it's not a blinking cell phone tower because it's 57 AD.
I'm just going to go on my own because Ari's heart isn't in this anyway. And she's correct. It's not. He doesn't care if Paul survives, but he also doesn't think that Paul can be killed.
Yeah.
So she takes off, and Ari looks down after a while, and she's gone. It's like, of course she is.
It's Rivka. Would we expect it to be any other way?
Of course she's gone. And meantime, Damien's up there, and his logic. You want to talk about someone that has never studied history? This man, this is how I knew. I was like, oh, you know nothing about history. Because his logic is that these Roman soldiers are going to see, he's going to pick off some of the soldiers first. These Romans are going to see, their comrades, their brothers in arms, their heads exploding and things piercing their armor and stuff like that,
and not know what's happening,
and they're going to scatter. Yeah. And I'm just going,
because they don't know what's happening.
Yeah. And I'm just like, no, that's not how Romans work. I mean, they might
just
be
say this. Roman soldiers were not wusses.
No. I'm like, you seem to be a movie buff, though. Have you never watched anything set in Roman? These are not men that easily scatter. These are men that are drilled, and you don't scatter on the battlefield. I don't care what you see.
They are manly men.
Men in tights.
Manly men.
Men in tights. Tights. But I read that and I was like, this guy, if I didn't think he was an idiot before with the Reeboks, this is my proof.
He's the very definition of a useful idiot.
He is absolutely a moron. He might be very smart. When I'm going to get myself in trouble with that. See.
Girl, you're better than I am. I just say it.
That's his logic, that he can just, make these, like, they're not the French. Yeah. This is Rome.
This is Rome.
You can't just pick up a few and think they'll run. And sure enough, Rivka doesn't get to him in time. So he starts shooting at the Roman soldiers, and we get a little bit of a perspective from a soldier named Quintus.
Yes. Yeah. It's not graphic.
But it's not graphic.
But you do see the results of it. Yeah.
So really, he just ticks Quintus off.
Yeah.
And he's like, what's happening to my, and there is confusion.
They don't have guns, so they don't know why people's heads are exploding.
There is confusion at first. But they recover really quick, and they close ranks, and they bring the standard bearer. Or just, you get the standard bearer and they unfurl the standard, and that gets
I had
into
to look up
something.
what a standard bearer was.
I knew what a standard bearer was.
I didn't know what a standard was. It's a flag for anybody that doesn't know.
I did not know that they considered that
like a prestigious role.
Well, I knew it was prestigious, but I didn't know it was almost religious.
Oh.
Because they talk about the power of the gods are in the standard. I wasn't aware of that. That's when Damien confuses them. Is when he kills the standard bearer and the standard falls to the ground. That's when it gets strange. That's when, but that's the thing that stops them.
Yes.
Rivka.
I love this part.
Of course. She's in hiding.
She's trying to help.
Damien had already discovered her and shot at her. And she kind of fell, but she was in hiding. Damien couldn't see her after that because she was right beneath him and underneath kind of a ledge. So she's been like, what do I do? What do I do? Ari's up there going, I don't know what to do.
And she's a woman, so she can't run out there.
She can't run out there and warn them.
Because they're never going to take her
seriously. They're not going to listen to her.
Yeah.
Romans weren't any better than,
Yeah, women were very low.
Why would you listen to a woman?
Yeah.
Alone out on the road at night? Why is she out there?
Yeah.
She's a Zona. So there's no telling what would have happened to her. But
she needs to try to warn them.
But she's got to try to warn them. So Ari's up there going, I don't know what I can do. Damien knows where Ari is because he's fired a warning shot at him once. So Ari's just like, I got to get down even further. He's up on top of this ledge, this cliff, which apparently isn't super tall, super high, but high enough.
High enough.
And Rivka, something gets shouted out in a female voice. And all the soldiers just...
Yeah.
So apparently
they
Rivka
think
speaks...
it's a goddess.
Rivka speaks what? I don't know. Is it... I guess Roman was a language? Well, Latin. She's yelling in Latin.
Yeah. I can't remember. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. That was a really... Does she speak Roman? There's no such thing as Roman.
Do we?
I'm sorry. So she yells out in Latin for everyone to, he has to, something like he has to stop after 6. Every 6.
Yeah, because he has to reload his ammunition cartridges.
And, we switch back to Quintus, and sure enough, he starts counting 3, 4, 5, 6. And of course, there's 400 soldiers there. So it's not like, I don't know how much ammo he brought, but it ain't enough.
No.
To kill all of them.
No.
And he knows that. And she tells them to stay down, get down. And finally they're
until
all...
the count of 6. Yeah.
Yes. So they rush him in waves between the 6 shots because he has to reload. And remember, he only has one arm. He's lost the use of his other arm.
Which slows him down.
Considerably.
Even more. Yeah.
So she's over there yelling in Latin, and they all think she's a goddess, a Roman goddess.
Yes. And that cracked me up.
It was so funny.
I love that. Yeah.
And Damien has no idea what she's saying.
Yeah. Because
he doesn't speak Latin.
Yeah.
Or, know that people didn't wear Reeboks in 57 AD. So, he keeps trying to reload. And sure enough, they eventually catch up with him, and that's the end of Damien.
Yep.
Spear through the chest. He's done.
And that kind of surprised me. It surprised me that... Because he's the main character.
That quick.
Yeah.
It was that quick.
Yeah, I kind of figured he would go through the rest of the series, but
yes.
Nope.
And his whole purpose in this was to make life better for his brother, who was paralyzed in a diving accident when he was 14. And I think 10 years later, he finally asked his brother, who was 2 years younger, he finally asked Damien to help him end it all. Come back with some drugs. They were found out. The plan was foiled. Damien was They moved his brother. He has no idea where his brother is, but he blames modern technology for making his brother suffer. Mm-hmm. You know, they have all this money, and I could kind of sympathize with him to a point because, you know, they have all this money to help keep people alive, but yet they haven't figured out how to operate on a spinal cord, mm-hmm. how to fix spinal cords.
Yeah.
Why, you know, and it's a little bit, Rivka's kind of the same, but with God, because her stepfather, how she became a Christian when she was 12, her stepfather had cancer and was healed mm-hmm. by someone from this Messianic temple that they mm-hmm. attended. Mm-hmm. And then this past Christmas, her stepfather died of cancer. And that's part of her argument with God right now. She's her fire has been lit again in this quest to save Paul. But she has been in doubt and angry and just tired mm-hmm. because she's lost her stepfather, who she loved, mm-hmm. On Christmas, no less. And she fully believed that God healed him once, he will heal him again. But that wasn't what happened this time.
And God never promised that. Yeah, and no. People today are even the same way. Sometimes God, it's his plan for you to die. Nobody lives forever.
It's the time, you know, nobody lives forever. It's true.
Yeah. And it doesn't make God any less,
so,
you know.
Yeah. And this
powerful.
has been what has lit the fire under her again, is this quest to save Paul. And she's felt guided in every step of it, except this last one. Mm-hmm. Oh, I forgot that. That was very important. Because she's in hiding from Damien. Damien's already seen her, and she's in hiding. And she finally says, have I really felt God guiding me through this part of this quest I'm on? She's like, no, I've been doing it myself. So she finally just, you know what? It's in your hands. I will do what you, if you want me to do nothing, I'll do nothing. If you want me to do this, just tell me what to do. Mm-hmm. And apparently what he tells her to do is to come out of hiding and tell Damien that she loves him and that God loves him.
Yeah.
And that's when he shoots at her.
Yeah.
But that's also what clues Ari into the fact that Damien does have a gun.
Yeah.
And it also gives him a vision of, he happens to look off and he sees the army coming. Uh-huh. So what God tells her to do actually does help.
Yeah.
Because Damien doesn't have the vantage point that he did have. He's across the road now because he runs across the road. He falls looking for Rivka. Mm-hmm. But because of his martial arts training, by the way, he has martial arts training. He only escapes with, it's a hard fall, but he knows how to land, and he just hurts himself a little.
Yes.
And so he has to scamper across the road and find somewhere else to hide. He's not where he was, so he's more vulnerable. Like those soldiers would have had to climb the ledge to get to him otherwise. But now he's on ground. Mm-hmm. So that just, it sort of leads to his death. And I'm sad that, you know, his brother is in the situation he's in. That's horrible. Mm-hmm. But that's what all this has been for. Modern technology would not have progressed to the point where it would keep people alive and suffering. I kind of see the point, but I mean, really, dude, the Unabomber, he's nuts.
Find a better role model.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Find someone else. Paul, for instance.
Yeah.
But Rivka gets to speak with Paul.
And I loved it. Yeah.
And it's very brief.
It was very touching.
Very brief, but very well done. And she's just like, oh, it's Paul.
And she recites some prayer over Damien.
It's a prayer that hasn't been.
It's a ritual prayer, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
I can't remember. I wanted to remember the name of it. Let me see. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. Sing for us, Brent.
The hills are with the sound of music. That was not a very manly choice, was it?
Oh, really?
Julie Andrews twirling on the mountain. Okay, let's see. There's a tear in my beer, and I'm crying for you, dear. I don't even know if that's the words. But
That's
oh my gosh. Hey, I tried.
That's true. Kaddish. The Kaddish.
Mm.
The Kaddish.
Or
maybe it's Kaddish. I don't know, but it's... Anyway,
apparently, it's a prayer that you pray over somebody who has died.
Over the dead.
Yes.
But it's not something that has been incorporated into the Jewish faith at this point in time. Maybe she's the reason. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know when it became incorporated. So all joking aside, it's not at this time.
Yeah.
But she listens to Paul pray over him. And then she prays over him, and they pray.
And he
together.
was really touched by her prayer.
And he was
because
very
that was
touched
very out of uncommon for a woman to pray in front of a man.
Yes.
Or to even talk to a man, but more or less pray in front of him.
They exchange words briefly, and then he's on his way.
Yeah, he kind of blessed her.
So that leaves Ari and Rivka. And Ari goes and doesn't he go and get the gun?
Yes.
He goes and gets the gun.
Because they may need it.
Yeah, because they may need it.
For protection, yeah.
And
because they don't know how long they're going to be there.
Yep. And then at
this point, they probably think there's no way out.
Yes, for sure.
As a reader, I'm thinking they're going to find their way back at some point throughout the series.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So they start talking again. And of course, we already know Ari's come to a little bit more of his character arc has progressed. He clearly believes in God. He still struggles. He's very much in a struggle with belief in Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So that's still an issue. And he's still like, so are you going to marry me or what? Because there's not a lot of options for her. And she realizes this a little bit earlier on, now that they're stuck here.
Yeah.
What does she do? She's an unmarried woman.
And Paul has already made arrangements to learn how to become a scribe. Not Paul, but Ari has made arrangements to learn to be a scribe.
Yes, Baruch is going to teach him how to be a scribe. But there's nothing she can do. She's an unmarried woman. She could be Zona, or she could be, she would have to beg. Or
I guess she could be a seller of purple, but Euodia already does that.
Well, and you have to have knowledge. She doesn't know how to do anything except be a scholar.
Period. Yeah.
And she can't be a scholar. She's a woman. So her best bet is to marry someone. But she doesn't want to marry. She couldn't marry just anyone, Who's going to put up with disrespect from
exactly
their wife?
Yeah, because women are supposed to be seen and not heard, basically.
But at the same time, Ari is still an unbeliever for her. He believes in God, but he does not believe in Jesus. And while he does not seem to have quite the level of loathing towards Christians that he did at the beginning of the book, it's still an issue.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't really get anywhere with that technically between Ari and Rivka, because the last scene with Ari and Rivka, Ari feels the sting of a hornet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how our last scene with them ends.
Yes, that's how it ends.
Yes. But there's an epilogue. And
I just got to say, I hate epilogues and I hate prologues. I always skip prologues. I never read a prologue. I absolutely hate them. Sometimes I'll skim them, but I'm just like, why not just have it be the first chapter? I hate prologues. I usually will skim an epilogue, but I equally loathe epilogues.
I understand.
How about you?
I don't mind epilogues.
They just
bother me at all.
I'm like, I'm just ready to get in the story. A lot of times epilogues or prologues, they start like in the middle of the story. And then when you get to chapter 1, you're all the way back to the beginning. I'm like, I hate that.
I understand.
I'm an author and I can almost 100% guarantee you will never have a prologue. You will never see a prologue in any of my books. Not that anybody cares. I'm just saying. I have very strong feelings on prologues.
Now you know.
Yes.
Now you know. There is an epilogue. It's with Deb and Jessica. who are, it's the same weekend. It's after Shabbat, and they are traveling back to the dig site. And they find Luke, who's apparently another archaeologist. We haven't met him till now. But he seems pretty lighthearted, and Dove's like, well, okay. But they get back to the dig site, and that's when they discover that they have uncovered a mosaic. And it depicts two people under a wedding canopy, and the two people are pretty unmistakably Ari and Rivka. And that's where the book ends.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now, clearly there are more books in this series, so we're going to find out how they got there, because I still don't think that Rivka would. She might, because what other choice does she have? But she certainly would not give up on trying to convert Ari. I don't believe Baruch would either. And I feel like, I hope that Ari and Rivka and Baruch and Hannah will be together. Wherever Baruch and Hannah go, I think Ari and Rivka will eventually end up there. They might stay in Jerusalem for a while, but they also know that what's coming in the next year will pretty much destroy Jerusalem as it is where they are now. There's a war or a battle or something that's coming. So I don't think they'll want to be around for
Plus,
that.
they have the foresight of the Bible and knowing that
Yes.
certain ruin is coming too.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So
Or at least Rivka does.
that was the book, and I enjoyed it.
Did you?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Well, see, and part of the reason why I was interested into what you thought about it, because I'm not a fantasy sci-fi type reader, and I know you kind of, or at least I know you like kind of movies like that. But this is also a mixture of sort of contemporary and historical fiction.
A little bit, yeah.
But to me, it didn't really feel like historical fiction because it had contemporary.
Well, it was through modern eyes.
Yes, it had contemporary people stuck in historical times.
Yeah.
So I don't know. People who are diehard historical fiction might not like the book.
I mean,
but I thought it was.
I think it was fine because
it.
enough of history is talked about, customs and things like that.
And I know you're kind of diehard historical fiction, so I kind of wanted to see if it kind of hit that groove for you.
I really truly enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting to, because again, like I said, sci-fi, I'm not so much a reader of it as I am a watcher.
When I said that was the book I wanted to read, like honestly, like what was your first thought? Were you like?
I was honestly just hoping I would enjoy it.
Okay, were you like?
I hope I like it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't think.
Okay.
It was just more. I hope this is one.
This is not
I
a
don't
book
have
that
trouble
you
getting
have
into.
Yeah, and that was kind of my worry too, because
well, it's not what you usually read.
Yeah, it's not what I usually read, but I don't know, something about that stopping an assassination on Paul, something about that just kind of.
It was interesting.
I thought it was a very intriguing.
Well, you like suspense.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it. Would recommend.
Yeah. So I think I would I'll probably read book 2. We've been going for a little over 2 hours, so we probably ought to wrap this up. Do you have any more you want to say on that, or are you done?
I don't think so.
We do have an author interview coming up.
Yes.
We don't have it as set in stone as we usually do, because it all kind of depends on the author. So it'll either be next week or the weekend after. It'll be the next podcast we do every 2 weeks. Yeah, we usually do every 2 weeks. So it'll either be 2 weeks from now or 4 weeks from now. We've kind of got her penciled in first both days. It's a book that hasn't been published yet. She wanted to come in. She contacted us and asked to come on to talk about her new book.
Yep.
Her name is Angela Ruth Strong. So this will be my first time to read one of her books. I have read the first 3 or 4 chapters. Enjoy it so far. So anyway, I can't really say what's coming up next time. It'll either be her, or if we don't read her, then we'll
do another
book. Yeah. So
one or the other.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, you want to sign us out?
Sure. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. You can, as he mentioned earlier, you can find us on YouTube, all podcast platforms. Sorry, I have trouble with the word sometimes.
iHeartRadio,
iHeartRadio. We're on Facebook. I am still working on TikTok, I swear. I'm going to get us on
We're going to get it
eventually.
Yeah.
Going to get us on Book Talk eventually, but right now all I know how to do is just scroll.
Yeah. Well, that's right. No hurry. whenever you have time.
But we appreciate you listening in, watching.
Yes.
We really, really do. Just listening to us talk about books.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully you enjoyed as much
Hopefully
as we
you
do.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Yes, it's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun.
So, all right, you guys take care, and we, one way or another, God willing, we will see you all
in a couple of weeks.
2 weeks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Bookish Introverts podcast, where together we explore the worlds within the pages. Until next time, stay bookish.